engaged you for several tasks, but one of those was video analysis, correct?
Video analysis is in support of understanding the event, yes.
Okay. And are you certified in the operation of any video programs that you used in this case?
Yes. I used a video program known as Input Ace, version 2.6.3. Input Ace is a program specifically designed to allow people without a lot of high-level skill, like high computer forensics or anything else, to examine video in such a way that when you examine it, you're not doing things to it, like altering it or anything else. That when you're looking at it, you can have some trust in what you do with it, that you're looking at the best that it can be with what it can provide. And within Input Ace, I'm certified at what they call both the operator level, and I'm also certified at the examiner level.
And what's the difference between an operator level and an examiner level?
So an operator level would, let's say, import videos, allow them to basically transfer with codecs or anything else. You could play them, maybe cut a couple pieces out, do these type of things. At an examiner level, you're actually doing, we'll call it manipulation. In other words, you're scaling it, you're looking at things, and so you have to have an understanding about how that happens. So, for example, there's certain ways, and I think you heard earlier in the testimony of Senior Examiner Armstrong, he used the word interpolation. So with interpolation, there's certain ways things get interpolated. Not the Billy word, but
thank you.
It'll work for now. And so the thing is, if I don't understand those things, I can't have trust within what I'm working with to better understand the totality of the event and what I'm looking at.
Now, when you look at videographic evidence, is frames per second something that's important?
It's one of the things, yes, sir.
Tell the jury what frames per second means.
Yeah, I mean, it's frames per second. So when you look down on your phone and it's recording a video or something else like that, you might see something that it's 30 FPS, the shorthand for frames per second. What that's telling you is, imagine if you were to take 30 still shots and just keep taking them at approximately 0.033 seconds, 30 frames per second, just take 1 second divided by 30. It would take 30 of those pictures in a continuous stream to make the 1 second that you're looking at, 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second. 60 frames just means that rather than having 30 still shots, you got 60 still shots. It's still 1 second, still the same resolution, potentially, depending if you haven't changed anything else. You're just getting more just micro snapshots with each point in time.
Do all videos run at the same frame per second amount?
Oh, no, absolutely not. And for example, in the examiner certifications, one of the things you're looking for just to get a feel is you look at things like frames per second and resolution and the codecs that it's using and these type of things. For example, 30 frames per second is common, but also 24 frames per second is common for high definition video because it's a more universal type of things. Or I want to say 23.95 something or 6 something is used for what they call NTSC, N November Tango Sierra Charlie, which is more of a European format like PAL. So the fact is, the short answer is the frame rates will vary depending on who's using what kind of camera or equipment or what they're trying to do.
Now, resolution is also a part of the analysis?
Resolution is part of understanding the video, yes.
And what is, how do you define resolution?
Yeah, it's defined a couple different ways, but it really is talking about the same thing. And I think you heard it. Is it all right to refer to my notes?
Yeah.
May I refer to my notes?
Sure.
Someone asked why they didn't invoke the rule because Dr. Black was in the courtroom during other witness testimony. He's an expert giving an expert opinion. His testimony is not about the facts of the case.
Senior Examiner Armstrong, the idea of what they were looking at when they were talking about one of the exhibits is 1920 by 844. So the question is, what does that mean? It means 1920 pixels across and 844 pixels high. So if you were to take each one of those things, and basically a pixel is the smallest element within that picture of a single color. It's just like a Lego block. That's all it is. So 1920 across, 844 high. Well, if I spread that out, and I think you guys, I apologize, but I'm just to the jury, imagine taking your phone and you spread it out, you get those sort of sharp edges where it looks like you had to get a bunch of squares together. You're looking at the edges of where the pixels are. When those things begin to get smoothed out, a lot of times what that is, and the software does amazing stuff, is that software smoothing it out, or what's called interpolating it, enhancing it, clarifying it. There's other verbs given to it. But so resolution is actually very critical.
Now, when one tries to look at different videos, but syncing them up, what role does sound play?
Yeah. So one of the things that's kind of unique with when you have it like an MP4 file, a very common type of file in a video format, there's a soundtrack to it. Well, when I try to store video, most programs, we want to sort of compress it up because it takes a lot of space. So what a lot of programs do is they'll take a look at it and say, hey, you know what? Those 30 frames per second, 3 or 4 of them are just really exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of those frames. So it's going to save me some space when I store it, right? But the audio track, which is completely separate, is not compressed. It's true against time. So what I do, and to understand and do the analysis, is I try to get as many different things, an audio track, take a look at the reports on what people perceive, take a look at the different videos, because remember, videos come from different perspectives. Sometimes we have them dead on, another person was to the left. And then what you do is you sort of put this all together to index it so you can get the best possible approximation of things like time and these type of things.
And is sound used to help sync up the videos?
Yes, sir.
And when you use sound, do you use a computer program to analyze that?
I do.
What is that?
It's actually Wavemaster Pro by NCH.
Okay. And when sound is analyzed, it puts together what would commonly be like a picture graph that's, excuse me, referred to as a waveform.
Yes.
And a waveform then allows you to see where the sound is for an event that's in the video, correct?
Well, it allows me to, so a waveform, if you've ever seen them, is those things that sort of have the big spikes in them and this type of stuff. A gunshot, for example. A gunshot has a loud percussive noise. I listen to the thing as it's playing. I see a big spike within the waveform. I can now mark that spike and say, that's the beginning of the gunshot. I listen some more. I watch the waveform shift. There's another spike. So what it allows me to do is it allows me to see a visual representation of sound. And now I don't have to be sort of hitting the space bar or using a stopwatch to hope I'm at or around the sound. I can actually mark that sound within it. It's the same if I look at it for 2 minutes or 20 minutes, the sound still occurs in the same place.
And you're using the frames per second, which is a known, to determine the distance between shot 1 and shot 2, so to speak.
Actually, what I'm doing is within the sound software, I know that the time between, let's just say, and let's use gunshots, shot 1 and shot 2, whatever that might be, but 2 shots. We'll call them shot 1 and shot 2. As they play in front of me, I can mark them. I see a finite time measurement. I can now, with an index point back in the video, I can go back to the video and say, oh, look, there's the same place that sound is occurring in the video frames. Well, now since I have a known time from the sound, I can then begin to take that known time and back it up to the other shot. Now, a quick point of clarification. Sound does not travel absolutely perfect. Shorthand is basically, for the time in this place, the distance of 1,100 feet, which is about where this event was occurring. It would take sound about a second to travel. So if you were standing in the middle of all this, it might be half a second this way or half a second that way. So you make allowances for that, but you have to understand that sound isn't an absolute determiner. That's why you have to take all this in total when you're thinking about it. But that's part of the way that you index.
Now, in the course of your engagement in this case, you prepared a report which was labeled a supplemental report, exhibit 141, correct?
That is correct.
And then because there was new videographic evidence found recently, you added to a supplemental, and that is exhibit 141, correct?
Well, 141 is the supplemental, as at least what I have in my hand.
The preliminary is 139 and the sub is 141.
That is correct.
Okay. If I misspoke, I apologize. Yeah. And you also did a timesheet, which is exhibit 142, correct?
Also correct.
Now, what I was looking from you was for the total time of events that happened on August 25th of 2020, beginning with what happened at Car Source 1, correct?
Part of the timings, that's my understanding, yes.
And I gave you what would be a known time where Kyle is on video stating friendly, friendly, friendly. And you synced that amongst other videos, correct?
You gave me a known location to look at. The time is estimated. And then what I did is using that as a start point, I actually found other places to sync and I worked backwards to that time.
And when you synced up all the different, not all the different videos, but the videos that you used in this case, you were able to get them to sync to what level?
In the first point, the sync points that I primarily use as points of reference. So just think about something that can be seen in a bunch of different things. So the sync points that I used was the high arc of the bag being thrown. You can see the different shadows and everything else. So from a video point, I was able to find that in a lot of different places, and I use that as a sync point. The other things from an audio standpoint is the gunshots. Now the gunshots can move depending on how far the person is away that's recording that sound. In these cases, it could be 150 feet is about 1/10 of a second or a little bit more. So between the different things, I would say I have confidence in the different timings here, plus or minus 1/10 of a second.
Now, and then I asked you to break down basically into several groups, but event number 1 starting with friendly, correct?
Yes, sir.
What I would refer to as the transition from event 1 to event 2, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then event number 2 from beginning to end.
With the beginning being from the first strike with what's been shown as a person with a rock-like object.
Okay. And then the end of event 2 would be defined as what?
The 4th shot by Kyle Rittenhouse.
And from the end of event 2 going on to end being what?
Are you asking the point in time or the actual measurement?
The actual act that ended your calculation.
So from the 4th shot by Kyle Rittenhouse in event 2 until the point where he's seen in the video raising his hands, I refer to that simply as surrender to the police.
And you used, in your calculations of time and video, you used 6 different videos?
I looked at all of them. I narrowed it down to the ones that are most relevant so I could keep the timings consistent.
So what you're saying is there's 100, and I'm throwing out a number, but over 100 different videos. Those are the 7 that you used to calculate these times and values.
Those are the primary ones, and then I validated them with the other ones.
Okay. Now, let's get started with that. The start of event number 1, do you have that available?
Yes. As in, do you want me to show it by video?
Yes.
Okay.
So just so everybody's clear that this is to just establish literally the time frame, the seconds, fraction of a seconds, within which things were done, to counter Binger's characterization of what happened.
So at this point,